The angel of the Lord declared unto Mary,
and she conceived by the Holy Spirit.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Behold the handmaid of the Lord.
Be it done to me according to your word.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
And the Word was made flesh,
and dwelt amongst us.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Pray for us, O Holy Mother of God,
that we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ. Pour forth, we beseech you, O Lord, your grace into our hearts, that we, to whom the incarnation of Christ, your Son, was made known by the message of an angel, may by his passion and cross be brought to the glory of his resurrection, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen.
Kini ang simbianan sa RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS DXKS Jess Ochenta ang inyong Radio Ronda 5,000 watts nagsimbiya sa ikatulong andana sa UFCO Lim Building, Borromeo Street, Dakbayan sa Surigao. RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS Jess Ochenta ang inyong Radio Ronda.
The Botas was destroyed.
Nakikita sa likod ko ngayon, malakas na yung agos ng Panano River.
Talagang nagbuhos ng napakatinding ulan.
Ang resulta, lagpas taong taas ng baha.
Kagabi takot na po kami. Ilang minuto lang po na ang taas na po ng tubig.
Merong mga outsiders na nananamantala.
Wala pa nga rin daw tumutulong sa kanila.
Kahit yung mga bahay dito sa paligid, lubog na sa baha.
Good evening, I'm Pio Ontiveros. Welcome to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Tonight on the program,
I am today announcing my intention to run for the presidency of the Philippines.
after his failed vice presidential bid in 2016, the son and namesake of former President Ferdinand Marcos yet again seeks to return to public office, this time to follow in the footsteps of his late father. Health Secretary Francisco Duque, a no-show in the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee's probe into the management of COVID-19 response funds. That's after President Duterte ordered cabinet officials to skip the hearing, which some senators say is unconstitutional. And the world celebrates every student's second parent today, so we ask you, what is your favorite line from your teacher? Former Senator Bongbong Marcos ends speculations about his political plans and finally announces he wants to be the next president of the Philippines. Marcos is running under the pro-administration Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, or PFP. Our Rex Remito joins us live. Rex, how will Marcos's candidacy affect the race so far?
Well, the road to Malacanang is getting tighter with Marcos joining the presidential race. Unlike other presidential bid speeches, this lasted for only more than 2 minutes. It centered on COVID-19 response, which is expected to be the main issue in the elections. He says he will focus on bringing back the country on its feet from the pandemic. Among the main phrases that he used, unifying leadership and tama-sama tayong babangon muli.
I know that it is this manner of unifying leadership that can lead us through this crisis, get our people safely back to work, for all of us to begin to live our lives once again. And that is why I am today announcing my intention to run for the presidency of the Philippines in the upcoming May 2022 elections.
We have yet to know if the tagline "unifying leadership" is a response to those who are strongly opposing his candidacy, especially the anti-Marcos crowd. His announcement came after weeks of rumors of a possible tandem with Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. It was even dubbed by his sister, Senator Amy Marcos, as a quote, "marriage made in heaven." Marcos has the so-called solid north, while Mayor Duterte has strong support in Mindanao. With Marcos's declaration, however, we're not sure if the reported tandem is even possible. He has also yet to reveal his running mate for vice president if there will be one, although supporters are not giving up and still hoping Mayor Duterte will run with BBM soon. Marcos is running with the support of PFP, where he was just sworn in as its chairman this morning. He even led the blessing of his national campaign headquarters in Mandaluyong City. The PFP, which is a pro-administration party, earlier nominated Marcos as its standard bearer. The son of late strongman Ferdinand Marcos just left Nacionalista Party after a decade of being a member. Although PFP's general campaign manager Vic Rodriguez says NP will remain as an important ally. The lawyer explains they have embraced the policy of having the broadest political alliances. Marcos lost the vice presidential race by just over 200,000 votes to his rival Leni Robredo. Marcos is now second among the possible presidential bets in the latest Pulse Asia survey. Whether or not he will hold on to his strong standing in the surveys in the coming months remains to be seen. Back to you.
Rex, can you tell us what Bongbong Marcos's campaign strategy is going to be in the coming weeks?
BBM's camp remains mum on their next move. He has even yet to say on when he will file his certificate of candidacy. Marcos, however, says he will do his best to reach as many areas in the country as possible, although he will focus on social media campaigns given the limitations due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah.
Rex and Media there reporting. It is no surprise that social media is abuzz about Marcos's presidential run. Hashtag BBM is my president 2022 and hashtag Marcos Magnanakaw were among top trending topics on Twitter. This netizen sees hope for the nation, saying, quote, Marcos pa rin. Another one says she wants to experience how the Marcoses lead the country. She adds, quote, sana magkaroon na ng disiplina ang mga Pilipino, unquote. But other social media users are up in arms. This netizen says, ang perang, quote, ang perang ninakaw ng ama at minana ng anak ay gagamitin bilang makinarya niya sa pagtakbo, unquote. He adds, quote, we will never let hashtag Marcos Magnanakaw set foot in the palace, not now, not ever, unquote. Netizen goes on to say that Marcos is unfit, unqualified, and uncalled for. Another tweet of Akbayan Youth Chairperson RJ Nagit got thousands of likes. An online student congress by the Commission on Higher Education turned into a silent protest. Bongbong's son, Sandro, was featured as speaker for the event, but that did not sit well with participants. They changed their Zoom names to hashtags Never Again and Marcos Magnanakaw. Now, this took place before his father, Bongbong's announcement this afternoon. The younger Marcos is seeking a congressional seat in Ilocos Norte. The activist group Bayan also issuing a statement opposing Bongbong's presidential bid, saying it is an insult to victims of martial law during his father's regime. Now, those vying for elective posts next year have until Friday to file their certificates of candidacy. The Commission on Elections is calling on candidates for national positions to avoid the last-minute rush. Senior correspondent David Santos joins us live from Sofitel's Harbor Garden tent in Pasay City. David, tell us more about this appeal by COMELEC.
The poll body is expressing concern over what it says the perennial Pinoy culture of complying with requirements at the last minute, and apparently candidates for national post are no exception. Now, COMELEC raised this concern during the inspection of PNP Chief Guillermo Elazar here at the Arbor Garden tent inside the Sofitel Manila premises this afternoon. Elazar seemed pleased over the security setup in this venue, particularly the deployment of his men, as well as the rigid processes everyone, including aspirants, need to go through to comply with health protocols. And while things have been going smoothly here for the past 5 days, officials are a bit apprehensive on what to expect on the last day of the filing of the COC.
Pinoy, yung last minute o yung last day probably baka magdagsaan dito, pero nakahanda doon.
What if dumating kayo rito, kulang ang mga requirements ninyo, o mali yung COC ninyo, o mali yung mga supporting documents? You have time to go back and fix it. If pag Friday kayo pumunta, di na kayo makakabalik kasi mahaba masyado ang pila.
So far, 26 presidential aspirants have filed their COCs, 6 of them today. This is relatively a small number compared to previous years. In 2015, 130 filed COCs for president, 20 of them on the first day alone. Only one candidate filed his COC for vice president today, bringing their total number to 8. Pia.
David, what about senatorial aspirants and party list groups? Any familiar faces who filed their COCs today?
Pia, there were 7 who filed their COCs for senator, while 26 submitted their certificates for nomination for party list groups. Overall, there are now 45 senatorial aspirants and 76 organizations vying to be among the party list representatives. Among those hoping to win a Senate seat is a controversial lawyer, Larry Gadon, who spoke here against the Aquino administration and the so-called Dilawans, while the Magdalo party list it is hoping to retain its seats in Congress. The party list group, led by its founder and former Senator Antonio Trillanes, submitted its papers this morning and left without even saying a word to the media. Pia.
David Santos there reporting. Aspirants who filed their COCs today include Metro Manila mayors seeking re-election, one filed without fanfare, the other with supporters gathering despite quarantine restrictions. Our George Quiles tells us that story.
Authorities discourage mass gatherings when politicians file their certificates of candidacy. But this appeal seems to fall on deaf ears, at least for supporters of San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora. A marching band plays upbeat music as supporters gather at the local COMELEC office. Supporters at a mass before Zamora filed his COC were more than the limit for religious sites under Alert Level 4.
We made sure, number one, dito po sa misa natin, 30% lang ng simbahan na ma-occupy. Pangalawa, I spoke with our Chief of Police 2 days ago and everyone involved sa peace and order to ensure health and safety protocols.
Zamora is seeking re-election under the PDP Laban Kusi faction. His running mate is Vice Mayor Warren Villa. Their political rivals, the Estradas, are not yet making a move.
Ako po'y muling naghahay na aking COC sapagkat ang San Juan po ay kinakailangan pamunuan ng maayos upang tuluyan nating maitawid ang ating lungsod mula sa pandemyang ito.
Basketball players James Yap, Don Aliado and Paul Artadi, and actor Ervic Vihande are part of Zamora's slate for councilor.
Ano daw plano ko kung magre-retire na ba ako? So ang sabi ko naman, pwede bang habang kung papalarin ako, habang councilor ako sa San Juan, pwede ba ako maglaro sa PBA? Ang sabi naman niya, pwede daw.
If the COC filing in San Juan ran the risk of a super spreader event, Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte and Vice Mayor Gian Soto filed their COCs without fanfare. Belmonte and Soto initially announced that they will file on October 8. They are expected to go head-to-head with the Nakalusugan Party List Representative Mike Defensor and Councilor Winnie Castelo. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
More questions than answers from the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee's hearing today as several government officials were a no-show. Health Secretary Francisco Duque and other DOH officials skipped the inquiry after attending all 10 previous hearings. The probe stems from audit findings of the agency's management of COVID-19 response funds. Senate Minority Leader Frank Drilon had some questions for the Budget Department's procurement service, but no official was present. Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman Richard Gordon saying President Duterte, as a lawyer, should know that he cannot prohibit officials from attending the hearings unless it involves national security issues or diplomatic secrets. Drilon said he will support a petition challenging the constitutionality of President Duterte's memorandum before the Supreme Court.
This has all the red flags of unconstitutionality. It only covers the House, the Senate. It only covers the Blue Ribbon. It does not cover other Blue Ribbon hearings, but only this particular Blue Ribbon hearing. This is really, if you want to call it, I cannot see any other memorandum as blatantly unconstitutional as what we have before us.
To those who are not present in today's hearing, we will see you in the budget hearings. So we may raise these questions in the budget hearings.
Senator Francis Tolentino, an administration ally, said he advised the president to let the Blue Ribbon Committee hearings continue in line with the separation of powers. The next hearing has been set for Tuesday, October 12. Now, the country will no longer accept new COVID-19 vaccine trials. The Science and Technology Department says it will opt to have studies involving a new platform or a new way of delivering vaccines, as well as a different population group.
For example, when I say bagong platform, hindi na to mga mRNA. Example, DNA vaccines is one, no? Isa yan sa titingnan. Number 2, yung route of administration. Merong bakuna na titingnan na hindi na by injection, kundi by inhalation through the nose. So, medyo kakaiba. Kaya ito yung mga bagong platforms, new ways of delivering the vaccine na titingnan, at saka new populations na titingnan din.
One of the new platforms recently developed is ZyCoV-D. It is the first human DNA vaccine against COVID. The vaccine will be delivered through the skin without the use of needles. Coming up on Newsnight, tropical depression Lani continues to drench provinces as it leaves 2 casualties, and netizens pay tribute to their mentors this World Teachers Day. More when we return. Stay tuned.
Nagsimula sa isang pangarap.
Ako na po, ma'am.
Ika'y tutulungang ibahin ang buhay na nakasanayan.
Naka 24 months ka na sa pag-ibig.
May panghulog na ako sa motor.
Uy, bagong motor!
Gagawa ng hakbang para mapaghandaan ng forever.
Ingat ka, ha?
At harapin ang bukas ng may maaasahan. Simulan mo na ang forever mo ngayon. Fund your forever with Pag-ibig Fund.
Register today!
New Magnolia Mayo. May choice ingredients na tatak Magnolia. At may tamang blend ng tamis-asim sarap that will make kids go, Try nyo, New Magnolia Mayo.
Bawat patak, may sarap, may lakas, sulit. Red Horse Beer.
Pogino! Dahil yan sa vet-approved Nutri-Chunks Coat Shine. With active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real salmon goodness and omega-3 and 6 for healthy skin and shiny coat. Kita naman, di ba? Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks Coat Shine.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Tropical Depression Lani leaves 2 dead in Cebu province. The Provincial Disaster Risk Management Office says an Indian national drowned while trying to cross a river in Consolacion town last night. In Carcar City, a minor also reportedly drowned while swimming with her friends when Lani hit land yesterday afternoon in nearby San Fernando town. Meantime, Pag-asa says Lani is now nearly 400 kilometers west of Coron, Palawan. The tropical depression is not expected to gain strength and may leave the country tomorrow morning. Storm signals have also been lifted, but moderate to heavy rains are still forecast over Palawan, including the Calamian, Kalayaan, and Cuyo Islands. Light to moderate with occasional heavy rains, meanwhile, are expected over Cagayan Valley, the Cordilleras, Bicol, portions of Mimaropa, and Western Visayas. Breaking news at this hour: for the first time in nearly 2 months, the daily COVID-19 infections hit below 10,000. The health department recorded 9,055 cases today, pushing the total number to over 2.6 million. Active cases are at over 103,000. No update on the number of deaths again today because of technical issues with the COVID Kaya system. Now, a survey showing a significant decline in Filipinos' approval of the Duterte administration's performance in key national issues. In a poll conducted by Pulse Asia, the government had the biggest drop in its handling of rising prices of goods and services, or inflation, which went from 63% in September last year to 37% last month. In efforts to control the spread of COVID-19, approval ratings declined from 84 to 59% in the same period. Results also showing a 25-point drop for issues like fighting graft and corruption in government and increasing workers' pay. The administration's performance in reducing poverty, meanwhile, fell by 24 points. The administration still enjoys majority approval ratings on fighting criminality, responding to calamity-affected areas, and protecting the welfare of overseas Filipino workers, among others. The survey was conducted on 2,400 adults from September 1 to 6. Malacanang says the low approval ratings reflect the current economic situation where millions of workers were affected by heightened quarantine restrictions. The palace says the government is ramping up vaccinations for the gradual reopening of the economy. The 2022 race heats up as more aspirants formalize their bids for local and congressional posts. With only 3 days left to file certificates of candidacy, Tristan Odalo tells us how the race is shaping up so far in the provinces.
In what could be a show of force and unity, Senator Ralph Recto expressed his support for the re-election bid of incumbent Lipa Mayor Eric Africa, who filed a certificate of candidacy on Tuesday. Africa highlights the need for continuity in leadership amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
Napakagandang pagkakataon na muli ko may pagpatuloy ang ating mga nasimulan na mga programa para sa ating kababayan.
From Lipa, Recto went to the provincial capital to file his COC for Batangas 6th District Representative.
Siguraduhin na tama ang paggastos ng pera ng buwis ng taong bayan, no? At gamitin sa tamang mga proyekto at programa. Pangalawa, nabanggit ko kanina, we have a continuing problem sa COVID-19.
The senator, however, remains mum on the plans of his wife, Batangas Representative Vilma Santos Recto.
Speculation shall run as VP or Senator po?
Malalaman ninyo hanggang naman tayo.
Joining Recto and Africa's Batangas slate is the husband of vlogger Alex Gonzaga, Mikey Morada, who is seeking re-election as councilor. Over in Laguna, former journalist and Laguna 3rd District Representative Sol Aragones is challenging incumbent Laguna Governor Ramil Hernandez. House Committee on Health Chairperson Helen Tan will run for governor of Quezon Province. She will go head-to-head with incumbent Governor Danilo Suarez. House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco, on the other hand, formalizes his re-election bid as Marinduque's lone district representative. In Cebu City, the wife of former Tomas Osmeña will be running for city mayor. If she wins, Margot will make history as the city's first female local chief executive. Meantime, celebrity Richard Yap will seek a congressional seat in the Northern District of Cebu City. This is his second try to win a House seat after he was defeated in 2019 by the late Cebu Representative Raul Del Mar. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
Today, we honor teachers for their hard work amid the health crisis. AC Nichols sheds light on the challenges they face in their second year under the distance learning system in this report.
For years, teachers shape the minds of children and help them discover their passions. Not an easy job, especially under the current circumstances.
Kaming mga teachers, talagang we compensate, we collaborate with the parents on how we can help. So yun ang ginagawa namin, talagang constant communication.
There are at least 1 million teachers in the country, not including those in higher education. For many students, they've become like second parents.
Thank you po sa pagsusuporta at sa pag-uunawa. Na kahit mahirap po yung panahon, nagagabayan pa rin po kami.
Sila po ang tumuturo sa akin sa tama o mali. Sila po ang gumagabay sa mga ginagawa ko sa araw-araw.
Hindi po kami matututunan dahil sa kanila eh.
In the new normal, Filipino teachers don't have to deal with overcrowded classrooms, but they face new challenges. Extra expenses for internet load, poor internet connection, and a different way of presenting lessons through a screen. But some challenges have always been there. At times, they feel overstretched and burned out. Many of them accept it as part of the job. They believe it's worth it when they see students moving up.
Nasusurvive namin dahil siguro dahil sa alam naman pag teacher ka, masyado ka resourceful ka, di ba? Kahit anong paraan gagawin mo talaga para kahit papaano maitawid mo yung hirap na dinadanasan mo.
In the meantime, teachers continue to demand higher wages and overtime pay. Amid the 2022 budget deliberations, they also appealed to Congress to give the Education Department a higher budget so that the agency can provide teachers the support they need, such as gadgets and other tools necessary in distance learning.
Ngayong new normal, nahihirapan pare-pareho. Pero kung talagang mas maraming suporta, both financially and also yung hindi late ang pagbigay ng mga kailangan namin, talagang malaking tulong yun eh.
AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
As education remains in the blended learning or mainly online setting, so do tributes to remember our mentors and their unforgettable one-liners on World Teachers Day. On CNN PH Asks, netizens shared some of their favorite quotes from teachers. One Facebook user brought up the classic "get one whole sheet of paper" line, the telltale sign of a dreaded quiz. Another netizen recalls a teacher's challenge with a quote, "You look intelligent, all of you, but that remains to be proven," unquote. And a comment recalls the popular announcement that never fails to get students to celebrate, "Walang pasok bukas, may seminar kaming mga teachers." But now it's our turn to drop a line that all our hardworking teachers, educators deserve to hear. Thank you and happy World Teachers Day from everyone here at CNN Philippines. Still ahead on Newsnight, a Filipino social media personality shuts down haters as he champions gender equality in a magazine cover. And a Broadway icon is taking his talents to the streaming giant Netflix, a sneak peek of Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut when we return.
Amid the darkness, look on the bright side. As the battle against COVID-19 continues, the fight for proper nutrition grows as more and more families lack access to healthy food. Knorr is no stranger to these health challenges. For over 2 decades, the food brand has championed proper nutrition for every Filipino and continued to do so, especially during these troubling times.
Knorr has an important role to play in addressing the problem of malnutrition. Given our reach and our portfolio of nutritious and delicious products, we are in a position to make a real difference.
Apart from educating moms and partnering with different organizations, Knorr has also remained true to its passion for good food, by continually improving on their products to provide essential nutrients that will benefit the families that use them. From its Nor Sinigang sa Sampalok Mix Original that now contains vitamin C, to the popular Nor Broth Cubes that are now also a source of iron. Nor's continuing innovation for positive nutrition is part of the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. The company's mission is to provide a positive social impact in the markets where it operates. For more information, consumers can visit Nor's website or follow Nor Philippines on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Sam Sidwani, CNN Philippines.
Gumagaan ang inuman pag sunliglay.
Oy, musta?
Ako, stressed sa work, kaya ini-imagine kong nasa beach ako.
Pagtapos ng mabigat na araw, mag-inuman with friends and sunliglay.
Ulitin natin to. Ang alin? Imagine?
Hindi, mag-inuman. Sunliglay.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Netizens woke up to news that 3 social media
back online. Facebook assures users that there is no evidence of their data getting compromised after a 6-hour outage. The Facebook VP for Infrastructure released a statement explaining that disruptions in network traffic because of router configuration changes caused the glitch. Users reported Facebook login and connection errors and Instagram feeds not loading past midnight until this morning. The temporary shutdown comes just days after Facebook whistleblower revealed in an interview that the company tried to hide proof that it knew its platforms were being used to spread hate and misinformation.
Facebook has pushed back against these allegations. And also, trending online, the latest Playboy digital issue shows off not only Pinoy representation, but also LGBTQ pride. Hawaii-based Filipino influencer Bretman Rock is the first openly gay man to grace the magazine's front page, and he is only its third male cover model, following late founder Hugh Hefner and musician Bad Bunny. After getting flack from netizens who claim he was not fit for the Playboy brand, Rock posted more photos from the shoot to combat online critics. And before we go moving from the stage to the big screen, Hamilton playwright Lin-Manuel Miranda is making his directorial debut. The new Netflix film Tick Tick Boom tells the story of the creator of critically acclaimed Broadway musical Rent. Played by Tony Award winner Andrew Garfield, the lead, Jonathan Larson, is a young composer dreaming of writing the next great piece of American theater. Miranda was first cast as Larson in an off-Broadway production of the original play in 2014. He said he was honored to adapt Tick Tick Boom into a motion picture back in 2018 when the project was just taking off.
What does it take to wake up the generation?
It would be a tragedy to give up what you have.
Take off and fly. Fear or love, baby, don't say the answer. Actions speak louder than
The autobiographical movie will be available for streaming on Netflix November 19. And that is it for now. Thank you for PH. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond. It is 81 days to go before Christmas.
This program is brought to you by
Biologic Systems Computer Center. Nagpahibalo sila nga modawat nag home credit applications kung ikaw gusto mo palit og laptop, desktop, magpa-build o gaming PC, printer sa uban pang IT products. Pwede na pinagi sa home credit. Apply na karon dayon sa Biologic Systems Computer Center diya sa Maydayan Magallanes and Ela Service Center dito sa Maydayan Himina ning syudad sa Surigao.
Ay, kasakit yun sa ako ang mga mata. Uy, labad pagyud kay ako ang ulo. Murag kog malipong ba? Unya, murag limtanon pagyud ko. Unsaon man ni uy.
Naanag yun ay kay problema, miss. Ha? Tanawa ko, nagsakay ka ng tricycle. Wala kay suot bra. Para masolban na imo problema. Ha? Pag inuman ni, Lutein Plus.
Unsa? Lutein Plus? Asa man na nimo gikan?
Ako man ninadunggan sa radyo, miss. Maong kagapalit ko naan. Pagpagandam ba?
Sige, salamat kaayo ha. Magpalit dayon ko og Lutein Plus.
Kini ang simbianan sa RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS DXKS Jess 80 ang inyong Radio Ronda 5,000 watts nagsimbiya sa ikatulong andana sa UFCO Lim Building, Borromeo Street, Dakbayan sa Surigao. RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS Jess 80 ang inyong Radio Ronda.
Rabies is the deadliest viral disease transmitted between humans and animals. It's spread to people from the saliva of infected animals. An infection from this disease causes tens of thousands of deaths every year, mainly in Asia and in Africa, with children being the most affected. It remains a serious public health threat in the country as well, but it's vaccine preventable. We'll know more about this viral disease on today's episode of MedTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Rabies is a deadly virus that can be easily prevented, but not without immediate and appropriate care. To explain more about this topic, we have on the program Dr. Ferdinand de Guzman. He's a family medicine and infectious disease specialist from San Lazaro Hospital. He's also a member of the Asian Rabies Expert Bureau. We're also joined by Dr. Pauline Convocar. She's the president of the Philippine College of Emergency Medicine. Thank you both for being with us. Now, the month of March is Rabies Awareness Month, and an estimated 200 to 250 Filipinos die from rabies every year. Now, dogs are the main source of human rabies deaths. According to the World Health Organization, at least a third of deaths here are children. Dr. Ferdy, I'll start with you first. What causes rabies and why does it remain a serious problem in our country?
Rabies has always been there. It's one of the oldest diseases, and we're aware of what the disease is, but there has not been so much implementation. In fact, there is a law. Okay, this was passed in 2007, but the law has not prevented the cases of rabies, and of course, we have been lax when it comes to responsible pet ownership.
Okay. Now, the Philippines had a goal of becoming a rabies-free country last year. But Dr. Ferdy, why has that not yet been achieved? And what do you think should be the next step?
We have been lax about the implementation about the law. The law actually is very good. It was passed way back in 2007. So if we had followed, if we had seen to it, there would be no stray dogs, okay? Because the key to the prevention and reduction of rabies cases is in dog immunization. So if we have responsible pet ownership on the part of people who own dogs, we would have less cases of rabies.
Rabies is transmitted through bites of an infected animal at ang pinaka-common dito ang mga unimmunized dogs. Now, Dr. Pauline, is there any other way rabies can be transmitted other than a bite? Say, for example, kalmot.
Yeah, it's still very much possible that a kalmot or a scratch may still be able to transmit the virus because you'll never know when the animal just licked its paws or nails and then scratched the patient. So that's one non-bite transmission of the virus. So it is still possible that there may be non-bite. Your pets may inadvertently lick your lips or any mucosa, and that may be a form or a way of transmission of the virus to the patient.
Oh, so there are more than one way to get infected with rabies. But are all dogs born with rabies, Dr. Ferdy?
Okay. Rabies is transmitted, or the carriers of the disease usually are warm-blooded animals. Of course, dogs, cats, they have the potential to transmit the disease. So they develop the disease first and then transmit to humans, whether bite or non-bite. We always say, if you have a dog bite or a cat bite or an exposure, bring the victim to the hospital. But most of the time, the source of the disease or the source of the exposure is there, the pet dog, which is not tied, which I said earlier would be considered as stray.
Dr. Pauline, aside from dogs, meron pa bang ibang mga common animals that our viewers should be aware about that is most likely to transmit rabies if ever they're infected to people?
Yeah, as was what was explained by Dr. Ferdy, all warm-blooded mammals, Dr. Ferdy, right? So, but
Yes.
However, in the Philippines, 98.5 to as close as 99% really are transmitted by dogs. All other animals that may transmit may be cats or any other domesticated animals that are warm-blooded. So they may still transmit, but they only comprise around less than 2% or 1.5% of the animal bite cases that we have in the Philippines.
Okay, so I can't stress enough the importance of trying to prevent rabies from happening, because by the time you start showing symptoms, it's most likely too late. Now, Dr. Ferdy, could you please explain to us how the virus travels through our body? How fast does this spread?
Okay, the usual scenario is that of a bite. Okay, so the saliva gets inside the human body through a bite, through a break in the skin. Now, the rate of travel of the rhabdovirus inside the body is 2 to 4 millimeters per hour. So actually, it's rather slow if you would count it as per hour. That's why we would say it's an urgency, not an emergency, because actually we still have time to prevent the development of the disease. When we see patients, we often ask, did the wound bleed? Okay, so if the patient or the guardian or caregiver tells us, yes, the patient bled, so it's a higher risk for the development of the disease if exposure is serious. So below the waist, because it's far from the brain, we would say that the wound is minor. Above the waist, because it's nearer the brain, we would say the exposure is major. So of course, with the 2 to 4 millimeters per hour, if it's above the waist, especially head and neck areas, automatic, that's a category 3 exposure, meaning the risk of the patient developing the disease is higher.
Okay, very good. Now, Dr. Pauline, if someone is bitten by a dog na hindi sila sigurado kung immunized ba against rabies ang aso, is this immediate time for them to go to the ER?
Ang payo ko talaga is pumunta ng emergency department if in doubt. Always. At least there you will be evaluated, you will be assessed if indeed what's the category of the bite. But before doing so, in the house, you may immediately and vigorously wash the wound with soap and water, preferably for around 10 to 15 minutes. If not available, the wound may just be thoroughly washed with water, but you may also apply antiseptic like alcohol or ethanol, 70%, and then proceed immediately to the emergency department should you have doubts if the bite was from an unimmunized dog or an immunized dog. Regardless, you should visit the emergency department.
Dr. Pauline, is it important for the emergency room physician na alamin nila yung status ng aso na kumagat doon sa tao?
Yes, we have to also know the status of the dog, even the status of the immunization of the dog. But more likely, oftentimes, the dogs are stray or if they're not immunized, or when in doubt, we really treat them as unimmunized. Besides, even if the dog is immunized, we still give the necessary prophylactic vaccination regardless of the vaccine status of the dog. Then we have to evaluate again if the immunization status is valid or not expired. So that's how we evaluate the wound first and then evaluate also the immunization status of the dog.
Okay, so the first symptoms of rabies in humans may be very similar to the flu and may last for days. More on this when we come back. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Stay with us.
Kaping swak sa iyong panlasa? Mixed Herbal Coffee. Ito ay may 10 sangkap na may maraming benepisyo sa ating kalusugan. Maganda para sa mga problema sa respiratory at prostate problem. Kaya naman sadyang ang kaping ito ay hindi lang siksik sa sustansya, kundi tiyak din sa swak ng inyong panlasa. Mixed Herbal Herbal Coffee, ang kaping para sa lahat.
Oct.5 Mixed Coffee, Immune Booster, Anti-Constipation. Oct.5 Mixed Coffee, ang kaping para sa lahat.
Para makainom ng libre, mag-send lang ng inyong mensahe sa Facebook page, The Big C Freebies.
The Big C Freebies. The Big C Freebies.
Para naman sa promo hotline, buy one take one, door-to-door delivery na.
Free shipping pa.
Mag-text 0929-232-8193.
0929-232-8193.
Kaping swak sa iyong panlasa?
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
We're together in health. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Our topic for today is rabies, which remains a serious public health threat in our country. Before we proceed with our discussion, let me emphasize the legal responsibility of pet owners in our country. Under Republic Act 9482, otherwise known as the Anti-Rabies Act of 2007, pet owners are required to have their dogs regularly vaccinated against rabies and maintain a registration card which contains all vaccinations conducted on their dog. For accurate record purposes, submit dogs for mandatory registration. And maintain control over their dog and not allow it to roam the streets or any public place without a leash. As what Dr. Ferdy mentioned, any dog without a leash is a stray dog. Rabies in humans progresses in 5 stages: the incubation, prodrome, acute, neurologic period, coma, and then death. The incubation period is the time before symptoms may appear. Dr. Ferdy, what happens during this stage and how long does it usually last?
Most of the time, these cases are misdiagnosed at the start because when they pass through the first stages which you mentioned, there is no hydrophobia yet, no aerophobia. These only become obvious a few hours prior to admission. Weakness of both extremities. But it's just good that the clinician who saw the patient managed to elicit a history of bite. Okay? So it doesn't have to pass through the different stages. What makes it obviously a case of rabies is when the symptoms of hydrophobia and aerophobia appear. And that is what we usually see in the emergency room or in the homes of the patients where these symptoms are first manifested.
Napaka-importante talaga ang time frame in bringing the person to seek medical care kaagad. Dr. Pauline, Dr. Ferdy mentioned about hydrophobia or yung fear ng water, ayaw uminom ng tubig, o yung aerophobia. Bakit kaya nangyayari ito sa isang taong infected with rabies?
If you understand, encephalitis kasi siya so talagang merong changes in behavior siya. They may not follow the same order, and oftentimes we see patients at the later phase na sila pumupunta. Ang payo ko talaga is that early on, with the history of bite, just visit any emergency department so that your wounds may be evaluated and we will already know if indeed you already have human rabies or not.
The drooling and the fear of drinking water is actually the pain that manifests. They feel a lot of pain whenever they do that. Now, Dr. Pauline, could you please explain to our viewers what is a step-by-step? What can they expect to happen?
So if we have here an emergency department, you'll go through a triaging process where the patient gets to be categorized based on severity and acuity, if the patient can wait or if the patient can't wait. And will be managed accordingly because that also depends on the phase of the PHASE of the presentation, if indeed you have already rabies or not. But if this is just an animal bite, then you'll be triaged according to an area where you will be registered. And then, of course, a doctor and a nurse will attend to you, evaluate the wound, and you'll be put in an area where the wounds will be evaluated. If you have not yet done the washing of the wounds with soap and water, it will be done again in the emergency department, and medications will be given depending on the assessment.
If a dog bites a person, it's necessary to keep the dog isolated from other animals and people for at least 10 days and observe it for abnormal or rabies-like behavior. Remember that rabies is a medical urgency. Now, Dr. Ferdy, what should someone do if they are far from medical help?
Actually, that's a very big problem. You are far from a facility that handles bites or that treats animal bites. These are actually things not to do in addition to what Ma'am Pauline has mentioned. Oftentimes in areas outside Manila, they think that dog bite is a snake bite. So what they do is they tie it with a very tight tourniquet, very tight, rope. They would say that this is to stop the upward spread, the spread of the virus inside the body. But actually, this is wrong. You're cutting off the blood supply from in that part of the body, maybe let's say the lower extremity where the child was bitten. Applications of concoctions. So while waiting for transportation to bring the patient to a facility which handles bites, please do not apply bawang. Many times we still see nowadays, they scrub bawang over the affected area, and what happens, it burns. Nasusunog po ang bite site. So it increases the size of the injury, as what Ma'am Pauline mentioned. So there's the risk of the patient developing tetanus, Another thing also, because you mentioned that a patient or the incident might have happened in an area where the nearest facility is 3 to 4 days away if you walk, if it's in the mountains. What we would often say is that observe the dog, take care of the biting animal, because most of the time the biting animal is a big help. When they finally get to see a doctor, first question we would often ask is, buhay pa ang aso? Nakikita nyo pa po ba ang pusa? As long as biting animal is alive, it's safe. Wala pong rabies ang biting animal because there are still no signs and symptoms of rabies in the dog.
So napaka-importante talaga yung condition ng animal, especially if you're far from adequate health care, because the status of the dog will give you an insight if this animal does have rabies or not. Because rabies is a potentially fatal condition which is 100% preventable when immediate medical treatment is received. It's important to know that the health department provides free anti-rabies vaccine for post and pre-exposure prophylaxis in all animal bite treatment centers. PhilHealth, meanwhile, provides qualified members a package that helps pay for the cost of post-exposure treatment. When we return, more on treatment for people who were bitten by animals with rabies. Your health is our priority here on MedTalk Health Talk.
Maayong balita sa tanan sa atong panginahanglan sa panimalay, mga gamit, ingon man mga dekorasyon, pwede na natong mapalit diha sa Wellington Bazaar. Anausab sa Wellington Bazaar ang mga bestidahon, karsunison, plain t-shirt, plastic chair, floor mat, mantel, banig, folding bed, habol, mosketero, trapal, lideret, basketball, stuffed toys ug mga dulaan sa bata. Ang Wellington Bazaar ana magalagad kanato sa dalan Kaymo ning Dakbayan sa Surigao. Wellington Bazaar, gikan sa mga kawani og tigdumala sa Wellington Bazaar. Mayong adlaw alang kaninyo. Wellington Bazaar, sukiyon ta sa kanunay.
Pangita, ang labing barato ng mga paraliton labi na sa mga nagamanin ng mga pahinanglan gikan karon. Kini imo mapalit diha sa Absolute Essential Traders Incorporated. Absolute Essential Traders Incorporated mara karon ang gihugupan sa tanan ng mga suking pumapalit labi na sa mga katawhan gikan sa Isla sa Dinagat, Siargao ug Bocas Grande. Ang Absolute Essential Traders Incorporated ana kini maymekan sa Dalan Rizal, kanto Amati, siyudad sa Surigao. Absolute Essential Traders Incorporated.
RPN Radio Philippines Network, Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao, member kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
The World Health Organization has a global campaign to end human rabies death by 2030. Here in the Philippines, we had a campaign to end rabies in 2020, but that has not been achieved. Our knowledge and understanding of rabies can help protect you and your loved ones from this potentially deadly viral disease. Welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, your connection to healthcare. All suspected cases of rabies should be treated immediately to prevent the onset of symptoms and death. Dr. Pauline, can you explain the treatment process?
So, okay, upon assessment of the wound, so that depends on the category of the wound, then perhaps a post-exposure prophylaxis, the vaccine may then be indicated. There are two types of how to give the vaccine. It may be through intradermal or intramuscular. There's a regimen to be followed strictly on schedule. So if the category is 3, then we have to give both passive and active vaccinations. So we have to give an immunoglobulin for the category 3, types of bites, and of course the prophylactic anti-rabies vaccine for all types of categories of the wound.
Oh yes, that's a follow-up question. Dr. Pauline, can you only get vaccinated after getting bitten or scratched by a dog?
Actually, you may prefer to have yourself vaccinated if you are high risk. Say, for example, you are a zookeeper, you are a veterinarian, you are a veterinarian assistant, or you are a lab technician or a lab personnel that has this high risk of exposure to a potential reservoir of rabies, then you may opt to be given a pre-exposure prophylaxis or a vaccine.
Not all animal bites require preventive rabies interventions though, but medical attention should be immediately sought after if the bite is from an animal exhibiting signs of rabies. Wildlife are much more likely to be rabid than domestic animals, but your pets can be infected when bitten by rabid wild animals, especially stray dogs, as what Dr. Ferdy mentioned earlier. Dr. Ferdy, why should we vaccinate our pets and how often should they get vaccinated?
So if you immunize dogs, because prevention would be cheaper, okay, and of course less traumatic to our patients, okay. If it's category 3 and it's a new patient, okay, no pre-exposure immunization on the part of the patient, like what you mentioned or like what was discussed earlier. And if dog is not immunized, marami pong injection. Because remember, you're not only preventing rabies, you have to prevent tetanus.
Now, knowing where to go after getting bitten by an animal is essential information to avoid complications. And an animal bite center is a facility where you can avail of services about animal bites. Dr. Pauline, where can people or our viewers go to in order to find out yung mga animal bite centers natin dito sa bansa?
There are two kinds of animal bite hospitals where you can go to. An animal bite treatment center are mostly government hospitals, but there are also private animal bite centers that can also attend to patients with animal bites. So you can conspicuously really see these signs because they are mandated also by accrediting bodies that they should have conspicuous signs that may lead you to these areas where you can have your wounds managed.
And we wrap another interesting episode today. We'd like to thank our guests, infectious disease specialist Dr. Ferdinand de Guzman and emergency medicine specialist Dr. Pauline Convocar. We appreciate your time and effort. Education is key to rabies prevention. Teaching people, especially children, about rabies is crucial to prevent this lethal disease. It may be fatal, but it's 100% preventable when you know what to do. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, helping build a healthier future for you. Thank you for watching.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Kini nga oras hatod kanado sa GFMQ Marketing